Gotta get my bump in the night in there.
Yeah, rep the shirt, rep the show, rep the team, the paranormal investigations. Mr. Mikey Bowser, welcome back to the podcast. And it's a show of extraordinary events where we don't know because the points are made up and it doesn't matter.
Precisely.
How's it been? I guess I should say we haven't talked in it seems like ages.
I know. I mean, besides Facebook chat here and there, it's been a while for sure. Things are going well with the team. We actually did our first investigation as the new team at the Grand Midway Hotel. Got some great evidence. We'll go through and probably release a documentary on that location probably sometime next year.
Dumb question. Any paranormal stuff happen?
No, I mean we just kind of hung out and had a pillow fight. That's what we're making a documentary about.
I'm about to say, did you just talk about all the photo shoots you guys do, or you guys? I mean, the poses, bro. I mean, who's taking the photos and what camera are you using? Is that a Canon? Because I'm looking at the thing, I'm like, yo, that's like some professional photography. Because like, I'm upset that we have all this technology and I still can't take a wonderful photo of the moon because it comes out like dog shit, like a smudge on my lens.
Yeah, yeah. Well, actually, we only did one photo shoot. I know you love to bring up the photo shoots all the time, but we only did one, and
Make a
it was
calendar.
actually
Make a calendar. I want to see you as the month of December because that's my birthday month.
okay. Okay, we might make that happen then. No, it's actually my teammate April, her daughter-in-law, did the photos for us, and yeah, she did a great job. Even though I'm horrible, I just look like a chubby fat kid every time I take a photo. It's horrible.
But you like to sport tank tops like all the time. Like I think what was it? Last week was the first time I wore a tank top in like ever. I'm not a fan of them. It's not that I think it's like showing off. It's just I don't like it when I can see your shoulders. I just there's something about it. Even when a girl has their shoulders showing, I'm like, I feel like the Taliban where I'm like, put a gown on, like cover up everything but your eyes. Like I look at that like, oh, how could you? You got the shoulders exposed, like it's gonna and getting sunburn on your shoulders is never fun. I mean,
Oh yeah.
it's a pain in the ass. I'm like, just cover them up. It's like when you get sunburn on your back, you just want to lay on your stomach all day and pray to God no one touches you.
Dude, I just rock the tanks. I mean, I got Wookiees under my armpits. I don't care. It's whatever's comfortable.
Wait. When we're sick, like not a tattoo of the Wookiees, but like Wookie as in you have a lot of armpit hair.
Oh yeah, yeah. I just rock it, man.
Is that
I'm married. Who cares?
is that better to have that? Like, I don't see that as an issue. If I see a dude with huge armpit hair, I'm like, that's fine. But if I see a guy and he's got so much hair on his body that he's wearing a sweater, I'm like, that is, I would hate to have that genetic.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. I remember I used to work at a grocery store, and my dad's one friend came in, and he was wearing a tank top, and he's just, I mean, just he looks like Sasquatch. It's disgusting. And he started talking to me, and then when he left, the cashier was like, "Who is that?" I was like, "Oh, that's my dad's friend." She's like, "Man, he is really freaking hairy." I was like, "Yep, yeah."
I was just
So I guess
watching
if you got it, I mean, you might as well flaunt it.
I was watching Always Sunny in Philadelphia and they were quarantining, I guess, because they were trying to keep their vocals pure. So he's like, we can't come in contact with any infections, not even the pizza guy. And then Frank just goes, it's the hair. Hair is what brings in the diseases. So he shaves his whole head off with like one of those barber knives, like the close cut
Yeah,
ones.
yeah.
And then he just starts looking at everybody. And he's like trying to shave them. So he literally shaved his whole body and starts rubbing around in Purell. And he's like, the hair, he goes, I must be pure. And then the doctor has to give him something because he like all the Purell, they had to get it off of his skin. And then the doctor was like, well, let's get to work. He takes off his lab coat. And he's just got hair everywhere. And Frank's just eyes just go huge. I'm like, that's the worst thing. Like if you could pick anything in the world, like one thing you want to have, like added to your genetics, and one thing you would hate to have.
Oh man.
Because it's the only way it's going to be true is like whenever you get something, there's always a very, very good positive, but then there's always that side effect. Like, hey, we're going to
Yeah.
cure your acne, but you're going to have anal bleeding for 3 years. You're like, Jesus.
Well, if it's only 3 years, I mean, that's sacrifice worth it. I mean, I'm 35 and I still have acne everywhere.
Nobody even looks at like those old commercials. I think it was Activia, not Activia, not that's a yogurt. It's another one, Proactive, I think it's called. But
Yeah.
if you listen to the side effects, have you ever heard of the side effects on those commercials?
Oh no, they whisper a list of them like at the end, so you don't
It's
pay attention.
I Googled it. It's not normal. Like it's like bleeding out of your eyes. Chances of getting more acne was the first one. I was like, well, that just eliminates what the product is kind of there for. But then it was
Yeah.
like testosterone or estrogen or hormonal like mischanges and stuff. So where it won't be I guess producing as much. And I'm like, oh my God. And then it just keeps on going like bloody diarrhea. Please call your I'm like, oh my, and they do. How do they get away with telling you it so fast? That doesn't make
I
any sense
know.
to me.
I know. The best is the radio commercials that have the stipulations real quick at the end. Because at least on TV, they say it real quick, but they at least have it on a screen, like telling you, like written down. Or on the radio, it's just like, and then it's done. It's like,
Well,
oh, okay.
even when they show it on the screen, it's moving so
It's
freaking quick.
it's
I'm like,
it's very small too.
could you do it like how they do at the stock market where it tells me I just lost a bunch of money when it just goes at the bottom of the screen nice and slow? Or Star Wars it and just have them floating through space like not that it's
Yeah.
45 minutes of the intro basically to Star Wars before you get to the actual film. Why can't I have that with my side effects? I want to know if I'm going to grow a third arm out of my ass. That would be very important to figure out. But I'm like, I don't understand how I saw that commercial. I was like, man, they're running it fast, like a dude at an auction just bidding off horses. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I want to know if my eyes are gonna bleed. I want to know if I'm gonna grow a tooth out of my forehead. That sounds like something important.
Yeah, definitely is. Yeah, I mean it's bad marketing if you have it the slow crawl like on Star Wars, like anal bleeding, death by a third toe growing out of your forehead.
But I'm hooked. If you said it like that, I'm hooked. I'm already gonna buy the product because you have this like Morgan Freeman going, you're gonna have rectal bleeding for at least 24 hours. I'm like, I don't care. That's the best commercial I've seen.
Yeah, if you throw Morgan Freeman in anything to do a voiceover, I mean, it's instant sold.
I
Him
guess
or the Sham Wow guy. If you had the Sham Wow guy come in like, and you're gonna have anal bleeding, like, all right, well, maybe it'll be all right then.
it's like I love the energy, but at the same time, that guy is in prison for a very long time.
Yeah, didn't he like beat up a hooker or something crazy?
Yeah, I don't I can't remember the huge part. There's a bigger part to that story. I think a stripper bit his tongue, I think.
Ah, yeah.
Like
Well, I was on cocaine too, I think, or
yeah,
something.
so I mean it makes sense if he beat her up first, then there's an issue. But if
Yeah,
some chick bites off your tongue, I'm like, all right, look, it's like OJ. You know, he was out front. He had his hands behind his head. He was waiting for the cops to come. He knew what he did. And it was like, now, if she would have, what, she cheated on him, there's the reaction. I'm not saying what he did was right, but I'm just saying it makes sense. You know, dude snapped in the heat of passion and killed a couple,
yeah.
allegedly.
Allegedly, you have to keep it
Allegedly.
there.
I saw your Mr. Rogers video and I had the most fun watching that. I was like, "Oh, he got the cardigan and everything." And it was even better because it was shot in a very poorly, dimly lit basement.
Oh
So I
yeah.
was like, the creeper vibe set in hard. I'm feeling Buffalo Bill off this.
Yeah, I mean that's my Fight Club basement. That's where I work out and do everything. So I thought, hey, if I'm gonna be extra creepy, it's definitely gonna be in here. Unfortunately, I don't have a well in the basement to keep people in and do the Fred Rogers skit, but you know maybe we'll find an even creepier basement next time. Because
Okay.
I'm gonna tell you now, I'm working on a new documentary for the Bel Air Demon House, and Fred Rogers, or I should say Mr. Bowser, may make another appearance.
You got to just make documentaries fun. How many documentaries do you watch and you don't want to sit through any of them? Like I watched the one with the Skinwalker Ranch. Have you ever seen that?
No, I haven't.
Do you know what Skinwalker Ranch is?
Yeah, I've seen a couple of the paranormal shows that went there.
Man, watching that, I don't wanna say it was bullshit, but it was bullshit, dude. Like, it was just like the guy was like well, the weird part was, like, there was a well or something, and he opens it up, and he got, like, massive radiation exposure from it, just being there for a minute. So they were like, "That's really
Mm,
strange." But I'm like, I mean, it makes sense. There's probably some parts on the earth that you can't go because of radiation exposure, whether it's like Chernobyl or something. I mean, they made a documentary about Chernobyl. That was fascinating, only because nobody really goes there. Like,
yeah.
and that's like, if you're gonna make a documentary about like something like a paranormal one or anything like that, you gotta make it fun. You gotta make it interesting, or you're not gonna get people hooked in. I mean, if it's just the
Mhm.
same thing like X-Files, the whole thing that they had was they would show you everything but the actual like encounter. It would just be like all these creep jump scare type things of like, we're gonna it's all leading up to the moment, and then it's a fucking commercial where the dude's telling you about, some type of acne cream that's going to clear your skin up and just like that, and then you're missing all the side effects. So then the whole time X Files is rolling, you're just worried about the side effects from the commercial you just watched. You're like, somebody's going to buy that and they're going to shit out their organs. That sounds awful.
I saw what you did there, going back to the
Yeah,
beginning of the conversation,
little
stand-up
segue,
comedian style. I like it.
little segue.
Um, yeah, I mean, what I try to do and what the group does is, I mean, we try to be professional and go in and investigate a location and take it seriously. But you're gonna have fun while you're doing it, and while you have fun, that's when stupid stuff happens. Like at the Bel Air Demon House, at one point, Sean, Jen, Hannah, and I are doing a spirit box session in the basement, and we're getting all these responses and stuff. And then we hear this noise, and you gotta remember, like on the camera, there's an IR light, so you can see everything. But when we're doing it, it's pitch black, so you can't see shit. And we're sitting there getting all these responses. And then we hear this noise, like it was like to my left. And I was like, holy shit, what was that? And then it took a second, and I realized, oh, someone took a shit upstairs and they flushed the toilet, and that was just the piping in the basement. So you have those moments, and a lot of shows I feel will just be serious the whole time. I like to throw those moments in there because it's something that keeps entertainment. And another thing, it's different too. A lot of the paranormal shows, they do like the jump scares. Like they'll be like, "Oh my god, look at that! Oh my god!" But we're not like that. Like if we hear a bump over in the other side of the room, we're walking towards it. We're not going to run away from it and try to do a jump scare and then it goes to commercial. So that seems like a big thing. A lot of the paranormal shows. So I guess our show could get, or our documentaries could get boring since we're not being intense and like afraid of everything and running around scared like they do on a lot of the other shows. So that's why I like to throw in the humor moments, just to kind of keep everyone's attention.
I'm just a guy searching for answers, so I always just really want the honest shit. But I know if I hear a noise and there's like, what's the worst way to die? To be 100% honest, you could die in your bed and with like a plate of Twinkies on your lap, or you could die by a ghost. Which would you rather die by, man? Because I mean, to me, I'm a revenge type of guy. Like if you hurt me, I play to get even. So I'm like, if a
Mhm.
ghost kills me, then I gotta come back as a revenge ghost, and then it's just like a never-ending cycle of like, oh, you got me, now I gotta get you. But like, that's a way to go. I mean, if you want something
Yeah,
on your gravestone or you want something that's gonna have respect, is dying by a ghost or being like, dude got lost in Alcatraz, a ghost killed him. It's like fucking give that guy a damn medal.
yeah. Hopefully it's on camera too.
I mean, if Donald Trump can get nominated for a Nobel Prize, I'm pretty sure you can get a medal if you were murdered by a ghost.
Yeah, and there actually is. I'm trying to think of the name of the location. I think it's Loveland Castle, where someone did supposedly get murdered by a ghost. So it can happen. It's rare. I mean, a lot of times the worst that can happen is like maybe an oppression or an attachment that follows you home. That's why anytime we finish up an investigation, I always say, "All right, if I have any friends following me or coming with trying to come with me, you have to stay here. You're not allowed to come back with me. I will come back and visit you another time." So
There's
that's kind of my stay here. Don't come to my house.
You always hear about the bad ghosts. What about the good ones? Like the ones that are protect like how do we know that maybe the fact of like, how there's like all these like you could basically die at any moment. So that's what they say is you can die at any moment. How do we know
Mhm.
if it's not a ghost who's just like helping all these dangers miss us? So we're just surviving, and then one day he like takes a fucking sick day or something, and that's when you die.
Yeah, it's very possible. I mean, there is something either attached to me or my spirit box because I always any location I go to, and I was actually reviewing my evidence from Bel Air Demon House last night, and Tony always shows up. A Tony through my spirit box, and when he shows up, he announces himself, and then it seems like all the entities that were talking to me all of a sudden start saying, "Hey, Tony, Tony," like it's crazy, and I don't know because he first showed up in a spirit box session I did in my basement. So I was working from home one day, and I kept hearing rustling around. My house is pretty active. I kept hearing rustling around the basement, so I was like, "All right, on my lunch break, I'm going down there with my spirit box and see what I get." And it's always like a Tony Caruso or Cusick. I can never
Hold
make
on.
out his last
Is
name.
it Tony, 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 and Tony?
It could be.
I'd love to say, because like imagine like 100 years from now, someone's doing what you're doing with a spirit box and something. The names they're gonna have.
Oh
Everybody's got
yeah,
a damn pseudonym now. So it's like you're gonna have a
yeah.
guy named like Blazer Chick 20 calling through a spirit box. It's like, when did Tony die? Do you know anything about Tony?
No, I mean I've tried researching because
The
I
tiger?
assume what's that?
Tony the
Tony the
tiger?
Tiger. Yeah, he just comes in. Oh yeah.
I
No.
killed a couple of kids and they found me and burned me.
No, I've actually tried researching prior owners to my house, and there was no Anthony's or Tony's. One misconception I think is that a person has to die at a location, which I don't think is true. Because if I look that way, there's a mansion at the top of the hill, and supposedly, and I think they retracted this, but I've heard that it was a hospital at one time or some kind of place where people would go and potentially there were deaths there. And then on 2 blocks that way is a cemetery. So it's very well that Tony didn't live here or die here. He could just have traveled here from another location.
I got my grandma's ashes, and we're gonna spread a little bit of them, like take a little piece and spread them, and then keep the rest in the urn. And that's
Hmm.
my biggest fear is like, imagine like if your ashes are still your spirit, like it's tied to those things. So like
Yeah.
if I take a little bit and spread it in another state, like in Florida or something, like that's where we were gonna spread them. I'm like, imagine if that's her fucking hand. Then she's like, we have the rest of her body here, her soul or her spirit, but then her hand is just a spirit with no hand because we threw it in fucking Florida. So there's just a spirit hand sitting on the beach with
Yeah.
like a martini or some shit. I'm like, that's fucking terrible. Like that's what scares me about cremation is like, if the Egyptians believed that your body was a ticket into the afterlife, it was the ship, the passage, whatever. Then if you get cremated, then are you a pile of ash in the afterlife? And can you feel that?
Well, I mean, first off, sorry to hear about your grandma, buddy. I know that's always a rough one. But Yeah, I mean, my theory is that as far as spirits go, I don't really think that it's necessarily your soul or anything like that. Like, I would assume, like, when someone dies, and I actually have something I'll tell you in a little bit, a hypothesis I want to test out, one of the locations I might be setting up. But I think it's just your essence that's left behind. And I think your soul is like an energy that goes to either an afterlife, if you believe in heaven or hell, or it goes into another body of someone that's being born, or if you believe in a caste system, maybe if you were, an asshole, you're going to come back as a worm or something like to that extent, if that's what you believe in. But I think what we're communicating with is essentially the essence of what that person was. So I don't think necessarily like it's going to be a hand in Florida, just walking around, like the thing from Adam's family, like a spiritual hand. I think that the body essentially is an empty vessel after someone dies, is my personal opinion.
Yeah. Well,
And I think the energy goes on.
so when my grandma did pass away, that was the first time I've ever encountered it like the day it happened, like right in front of me, like, because she wanted to die in her house. So it was like, okay, we're gonna do everything we possibly can. I feel comfortable that I put her in her final resting place, such as I picked her up and moved her to a hospital bed, and then eventually she just wasn't moving at all.
Hmm.
But when I saw her, like I remember my brother warning me, like, "Hey, it's not what you think it is." And I'm like, what do you think it is? He goes, it's not, it's gonna shock you. And I walked in and it was just this lifeless body, like, mouth
Hmm.
open. It looked like I Am Legend. I hate to, I'm gonna cross myself because that's my grandma.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
it was like there was nothing there. Like I could tell. And I did break down. I won't go too personal into it, but it was something where I saw it and I was like, there's no energy there. I don't sense my grandmom anymore. Like there's no,
Yeah.
everyone gives off a typical energy. But this is what kind of has me thinking is, first of all, I think hell is Doctor Strange's mirror dimension. And I was on the elliptical watching the full Doctor Strange. I spent 2 hours watching that on the elliptical. That
That's burning some calories there. Holy shit.
that'll give you a seizure, dude. That
Yeah,
when he
yeah.
goes into the mirror dimension, my brain was like, I don't know what the fuck to do. And but when they're talking about like how like you ever see this before? It was like the acupuncture poster, and then she flips it over. You see this? It was like all the yoga posters, and he's like, I see these in all these shops. He goes, because everyone had a piece of the puzzle, but there's a bigger picture. And I think that's what it is. Like, who's to say with energies? Who's to say, with religious texts, there's a heaven, there's a hell. Maybe your energy goes off and you just fade and that's it. But it's so interesting to see, like, maybe it's all one grand scale, depending on what your beliefs are, is how it's going to affect you in the afterlife. If you believe so much so that there is a heaven and there's a hell, you have an unbreakable faith for it, then maybe
Hmm.
when you die, your brain creates this alternate, this other dimension or this thing inside of your own consciousness that brings you to this spot to keep safe. Same thing if you don't believe in anything. Maybe you just go because your brain's like, there's no point in me creating a fall. Because I think it goes into the point, like, you ever have something happen in a day where you're like, am I dead? Like, what's going on? Am I, this is so weird. It just doesn't feel normal. It feels like I'm asleep. I'm like,
Hmm.
maybe, like, the way you're in a coma's brain, or in a person who's in a coma in their mind, they're creating an alternate reality that their brain can cope with while they're in this comatose state. Maybe that's like with death. Maybe that it creates this thing. Who's this? Like, what's that movie? John dies at the end. Do you ever see that movie?
No, I don't think so.
There's this drug that they're taking and it like expands out their mind and creates like this weird like illusions and like monsters. It's like touching through a portal and going and like pulling all these creatures out from the other end. Like
Hmm.
cockroaches would crawl on his hand and he'd shake his hand. There was nothing there. His brain was creating it. But he's talking to this guy in a diner, and the guy, like, he was like, I remember getting I was doing a news report back in New York. And then next thing you know, they're calling me all these racial slurs, and he threw me in a trunk and started beating me up. And he looks at the guy, and the guy's played by Paul Giamatti, who's a white guy. And he
Classic.
looks at him and he goes, "Oh." And the guy's like, "What? You think that's funny that they were beating me up and calling me all these horrible racial slurs?" He goes, "Ah, man, you're just a figment of my imagination." He goes, "What?" And he goes, "It's a side effect from the drug that I'm on." And he goes, "What?" And then they open up the back of the dude's trunk, and there's his dead body in there, and his dead body's is black, but Paul Giamatti's like, "That's me. I'm dead." He goes, where he goes, yeah, but what I see right now is a white guy, probably late 40s, and that's who I see. But that's you in the trunk. So you're just a figment of my imagination. And the dude just fucking says, "What? But I'm real." And then he just disappears. And I'm like, imagine if that
Hmm.
is like when you shatter the illusion, when you shatter
Hmm.
the dimension, when you shatter this, like right now, we're in life right now. Let's say you've spent 30 something years or 40 something years thinking that, oh, it's all this, if I get hurt, if I jump off a building, I'll die and then I won't be around anymore. Then you jump off of a fucking building, 5 stories, land on your head, and you just pop up like no scratch or nothing. You go, my brain just created this illusion. And then you just fucking disappear because your mind figures itself out that you're like, oh, no,
Hmm.
your
Yeah.
brain was just constructing this to help you cope. But now you figured it out. And now it's like the Matrix, you broke it.
I mean, it's very possible. I mean,
That's a
it's
mind
a.
fuck. That's a
I
that's
know, I know.
uh,
It's something like they say that a lot with cryptids too. Like cryptid creatures is are they have they always been here, or like Bigfoot and some of the other cryptids out there like Loch Ness monster, are they actual creatures of evolution, or did enough people believe that it was there and believe in Bigfoot and Loch Ness that it actually manifested based on enough people believing in it? That's definitely a theory. Kind of ties into what you said.
my greatest belief or concept of what everything that we go by for so long, like, because nobody ever questions anything because it's old. And the only times anybody brings up something about the Bible, like all the stories and all these things, it goes, well, it was made by man. And I was like, okay,
Mhm.
I think even with cryptids, it's all the same shit. It's been storyboarded up. It's been at like every time you create a story, you add things onto it later down the line. You make it more hyped up, you make it a better story, you finalize it. Like that's the interesting thing about kids. Kids don't are the worst people to talk to because they have a story in their head, they have a thing, and they're trying to find the best possible way to make it into a great story. So they're like, and then I went to the store and I ran into a goblin, and then you just start going. You're like, oh my god, what are you trying to say? And you figure out the
Yeah.
kid went to a freaking costume shop, saw a goblin costume, and then got scared and ran out. It was nothing like he was saying. He acted like he's ran into a real goblin. Maybe that's with cryptids. The first I saw a video a buddy of mine had sent to me, and it was like it looked like a gorilla in like this open field, and it's like you could tell it's at somebody's house, so there's no way a gorilla is just walking around. But it
Yeah.
stood up like Bigfoot and started walking. But the camera angle was so shit. I was like, we're in 2021. You're telling me you got a video of a Bigfoot and it looks like it was shot off something a 2002 home fucking video. It doesn't make sense. So possibly fake. But it's like how many stories have just been hyped up to what we believe in now, like Jesus walking on water. I'm like, imagine if he was just standing in a shallow end of the water or something like
Yeah.
that. Like it's all these things that end up getting told and told in multiple different variations where we don't know what to believe anymore. That's the only good part about technology is the fact that we'll have records of things, but even then that can be skewed. Sometimes I see a video. Did you see the Wombo app?
No.
I'll have to send it to you. But it takes your face from a photo, adds like moves the eyebrows, moves your lips, moves this, and has you sing to a song, has you move like you would do a 3D
Jeez.
picture, like you could rotate the picture. It
Yeah,
does
yeah.
that in the video, and it's a still shot of you. I took a picture of that my buddy did in a video. I screenshotted it and I put it up to the Wombo app, and it has you morphed up to a song. Dude, he was like, "How is this possible?" And I'm like, technology is getting to the point where eventually you're going to have like they had a Biden singing Thriller and all that, and I was like,
Oh, that's
yeah,
great.
I know for a
Was he
fact.
sitting in the chair when he did it?
Well, it was just it gets you from like the neck up. So,
Oh,
but
okay.
it works so insanely and it's funny as shit, but it's also scary of like sooner or later you're going to see a bunch of videos of people cropping up things like they could easily Photoshop you saying a bunch of things that you did not say. And then
Oh,
next thing you
yeah.
know, we're living in this false reality like I was talking about before. Does your brain create a false reality when the world's already doing it itself? Like it's really hard to find what the truth is. I think that's why there's like this big pool of like digging through the internet and like there was cancel culture on Medusa
On
yesterday.
Medusa? For
Medusa,
what?
the apparent because her story isn't the best. She was raped by Poseidon, and then she ran to Athena for help, and Athena was jealous of her because she had a crush on Poseidon. And next thing you know, she turned her into this horrible snake-like creature. When any man gazes upon her, they turn to stone. And then everyone's like, this just shows the oppressive thumb of men. I'm like, what the fuck are we doing? That story is not true. Like we know Gorgons
Yeah.
don't exist. We know they might have seen something like a person with a snake on their head and been like, it's this. And then it just got morphed into. That's why I wish I had time travel abilities to just go back to the fucking moment it happened. First, I'd save JFK. And then
Save him.
I would go to
Yeah, but
all
who knows
these.
what kind of butterfly effect that would have?
Nah, it's all right. It's just time. We can fix that. Doctor Strange did
Yeah.
it. It was okay. But
Yeah, I
even
mean, I won't even get started on the cancel culture. It's
I'm
ridiculous.
gonna predict it now. I predicted it about like 2 weeks ago too. I think it's gonna get so ridiculous that eventually people are gonna be like, "Fuck you," and then just gonna go back to normal. But also, I talked to someone who told me cancel culture doesn't exist, and I'm like, "I fucking think it does." But in his eyes, he's like, "Well, they'll never get work again." I'm like, "Yo, nobody's coming at Bill Cosby with a record deal. I can tell you that much." You know what I mean?
Yeah,
There's a line to be drawn at some things, but at the same time, I think it's gonna get so ridiculous where people aren't gonna want. Like even when Medusa was trending, it was like, "What the fuck?" Like now, the world is so creepy. Like, it's just everyone's mind is like a squirrel with a nut trying to find the next nut. You know, like right now, stimulus checks are trending because people are starting to receive their stimulus checks, but then Wells Fargo posted up this thing saying that they weren't going to process their payments as soon as possible. They were going to wait time. And it was like, okay, so now you have a bank that's refusing to give people immediate money like they're supposed to. They're going to wait and let the thing process. And I'm like, the world is just having fun right now.
what's the rule with cancel culture? Because it seems like it's canceling everything from the past. Yet you hear music like everyone brings up the Cardi B WAP song and other rap songs or like some like metal bands that's their shtick is being super offensive, but no one's saying shit about them. Is it because they're new and that's like a new thing and we only cancel out the past? It's kind of a weird concept because
New things can get canceled too. It just depends how someone interprets something and then wants to put their spin on it. Like I've been almost canceled a couple of times, but I just tell them like I'll say whatever the fuck I want, only because I'm not popular. So canceling something that doesn't truly exist is just nuts. Um, but it's like a fact of like, so if I see what do you call it? Johnny Bravo is a show that could not be played today.
yeah.
There's a scene, there's multiple scenes that I could point out, but one good example is when he walked up to a chick and she was, you know, model status. You know how Johnny Bravo always hits on the chicks. And he
Mhm.
goes, "Huh, hey, honey, would you like a boyfriend?" And she's like, I already have one. He goes, "You look like the type that likes two." That can't be said because that is, I guess, what they would say is inferring that she is of the sleep around type.
Yeah.
So it goes with anything. Like you can find things like my buddy posted up something about unicorns. He's like, I bet you unicorns will be canceled. And I'm like, yeah, because why, when somebody is called a unicorn, it immediately in your head, what do you think?
Just a horn. I
You
don't
th-
know.
you
Or
think
you mean an actual person being called a unicorn?
yeah, like if someone goes, you're
I've
such
never
a
even heard of that. I'm
someone
assuming
goes,
something with the genitalia.
if someone goes, "You're such a unicorn," what do you think that it means? That doesn't
Uh,
mean you're one in a million. That means usually of the homophobic tendency qualities is that
yeah.
someone can pull from that. So then when
Yeah.
someone pulls that, that means that can be canceled. So it's all everyone's interpretation. I'm like, then if we're canceling that, why don't we cancel some religious stories? There's a fucking story that talks about a man that prayed to God because some children were making fun of him, and God sent down two bears to slaughter these kids. Like, what the fuck cancel culture
Yeah.
can hit anything. I can cancel Coke was being I honestly agree with a lot of people with what they were going with Coke. Coke put out a whole list of things of it's called how to be less white. That's what they called it. And I'm like,
Wow. Yeah, that's probably not a good thing.
like, come on. Like, and then like there's old videos of Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson talking about how like a lot of times men feel threatened today because usually the topic or target is men of whiteness or white skin that are seen to be superior figures, which is not true, but that's how people, the media puts it, and then that's how people look at it, and then people want to take that person down. But now it hasn't just stopped there; it also attacks men in general, like
Mhm.
men. They're toxic. They're, the whole thing with there was a trending hashtag on Twitter about women, all women. It's all, and it's like, what is that? And it's about domestic violence at home. And it's like that's not always the case. Some, like, you talk
Yeah.
about sexual assault. I've been sexually assaulted. I'm a guy. There's those, but they're not fighting for that. They're only fighting for the women, or that's the problem. My issue with feminism is like I like the factor of that's there. I think it's supportive, but the typical feminist you think of isn't a nice one. It's a very, very
Mhm.
drastic and very outrageous one. And I'm like, that's cancel culture, man. It's this whole
Yeah.
idea of trying to you take an inference into something, you see something, and you feel the need to try and delete it or get it taken off because you're offended by it. But now people are trying to find offended things or trying to find something they can turn into offensive just to get attention.
Mhm.
Pepe Le Pew was canceled, and I was like, "What the
I heard
fuck?
about that. Yeah.
Who gives a shit? What are you doing in your life right now, or what should you be doing in your life right now? But you're focused on Pepe Le Pew. Like you should
Mhm.
maybe pay your fucking electric bill. Maybe like I don't
Get a
what
job.
it doesn't make sense. And it's like strange times we're living in, and it's only getting stranger. And I think there's going to be a breaking point at one point, and it's just going to push right back. So I don't know when that's going to be. Maybe I'm guessing
Yeah.
December, maybe November, around the holidays,
I
people are like, I
hope
don't give a
so for
shit.
sure. I mean, it seems like even like with stand-up comedians, like I feel bad for them. I mean, what are you allowed to do at this point? I mean, that back in the early '90s, you had like Chris Rock and Eddie Murphy just killing it, and they could not do that nowadays with the way everything is. You can't tell jokes anymore. Like, what can you do as a comedian? Like,
Well,
I think they get hit the worst.
Well, part of no, it started with them. They're not really getting hit the worst. It just started with them. It just makes it very hard to do a craft when someone wants to pick apart everything that you're saying and try and find a root evil in it that is necessarily not there. A lot
Yeah,
of stand-up comedy, especially back in the day, was pointing out obvious things you were meant to be like, oh, that's fucking horrible, and like laugh. That's
yeah,
the point of it. The fact that that that's bad, you can laugh at that because it's so ridiculous. Like, don't mess with the Zohan. Best movie example. That movie had so many things that could not be played today because of the way they acted in those films. They made fun of Islamic people. But you knew it was all stereotypical, so ridiculous that you knew for a fact in your head it was not real. So you
mhm,
laughed at it because that's the point. It's supposed to laugh at obscurities or laugh at things that is not true. But now it brings to this point where people are afraid to say something. I know so many people that are like, even getting guests for the podcast. I want a list of questions before I come on the show. Then I don't have a list of questions to ask you. And it's
yeah,
all in the fear of somebody will make you say something that you might not want out there, or you might get political, you might get something. And it's like, geez, like everyone's being afraid to say what they mean or say something knowing that it's going to be a joke because it might offend somebody. It's like once you start trying to regulate how the world sees you, nobody on the earth is not everybody on earth is going to agree with you. Somebody's going to get upset at one thing you say. I could say, today or the other day was Pi Day, 3.14. And then people are like,
mhm.
well, math killed my family. And you're like, what? And you'll get that because somebody might have a certain thing with that where that might correlate something with them, but not everybody. It's about kind of, does the mass majority think this is horrible, not just
Yeah.
one person?
Well, I hope no one's offended, but Robbie, happy Pi Day since it is Pi Day.
I thank you. 3.1455. I don't know. The numbers go on and on.
Yeah, yeah, just
Please, please.
3.14. They'll understand.
I don't understand why numbers means like that's offensive. There you go. Why don't we cancel 666?
Yeah,
But then we'd
yeah,
offend the Satanists.
yeah, exactly. So, I mean, no matter what, someone's gonna get offended. So why don't you just let everyone do what they want, unless you get real bad. If you start saying things that you shouldn't say as a particular person, then I get it. But if you're just, I don't know. It's a horrible thing with this cancel culture. I don't understand it. I don't know why people like Dr. Frickin' Seuss is getting canceled. Like, what the fuck is wrong with
Because
people?
I'm offended that the dude was eating green eggs and ham and he wouldn't accept the dude's offer. That dude followed him on a boat, followed him on what's it, on a, I would not want it anywhere. I would not want it on a boat. I would not want it on a float. I would not want it anywhere. I don't know. I haven't heard that book since I was like
Yeah,
6.
I haven't either. You got more than I do.
I'm pretty sure I wasn't even right. I know redfish, bluefish, or one fish, two fish, redfish, bluefish.
Now, is that one that's getting canceled?
Probably down the line.
Yeah, I mean, it is talking about colored fish, red fish, blue fish.
Well,
I
let's
mean,
start canceling everything. What else can we cancel in society?
let's cancel work. I'm sick of it. It offends me. I have to wake up at 5:30 in the morning. I'm offended.
Most people already canceled it. Most people are just working from home now.
Yeah, that's true.
I love it when
I'm
somebody complains about getting a stimulus check and then it's like, but you spent it, didn't you? And like, yeah, but I didn't like it. And it's like, but what'd you buy? It's like, I bought Versace shades. I bought a new purse. It's like, okay,
yeah.
it's meant to pay your bills.
Yeah, exactly.
Trying to think of a really good topic that could be canceled.
Hopefully not paranormal stuff.
I'm offended at the paranormal. The fact that you're talking to actually, that's a very sketchy line too, because you could be canceled for that. Because there's true crime podcasts that get canceled,
Mm,
and there's like things about the paranormal that get canceled because then you're saying that their loved one didn't go to heaven or hell. You're saying that they're stuck on this plane of internal damnation.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there are lines too, because a lot of people do feel that paranormal investigation is exploiting the dead, but I always feel it's kind of enhancing the history of whatever location you're at. Maybe getting an understanding that you go to like Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. Everybody knows the history, but have no one actually talked to a patient that was there. Not everybody has. So I think it's a good idea to go to these places and actually get a perspective that you may not have heard already.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an important science to it. I'm not going to be the one that probably starts up a paranormal team, but I like that there's people out there that doing. I just like as long as it doesn't bother me, then I'm fucking fine. You know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah.
what bothers me is very, very little. Like people that don't return their shopping carts at this grocery store back to the
Oh, I used to
carrier.
be a bagger, and I was a cart gatherer. If I see someone doing it, I'll call them out. Unless you're like 100 years old, then you get a pass. But yeah, if you're not 100 years old, then fuck you if you don't take your cart back.
But and then also people that stand in the middle of the aisle and like won't move out of your way, and then they give you a look of disgust when you walk past them, like you have to move out of their way. They look at you like, "What's wrong with you?" It's like you're in the standing in the middle of the fucking aisle, and I have to
Yeah.
lean up against the side and knock over every single bottle of Chick-fil-A sauce that's possibly there to get
Hmm.
to the other side of you so I can continue my shopping. And you're looking at me with disgust. I'm like, excuse me, moi.
The mysterious Chick-fil-A sauce.
I can't believe you've never had Chick-fil-A sauce.
Dude, I don't rock mustard, man. It's like my
It's not even
eh,
do you like honey mustard?
no.
Okay. It's like a version of honey mustard. I think it's a little bit sweeter. The calorie content on it, oh my God. I saw that. I was like, oh, I'm never eating Chick-fil-A sauce ever again. It's 160 calories in a serving. I'm like, that's the
Damn.
same shit as like a dressing for a salad.
Yeah, yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I don't rock mustard. I can't do it. It's what just I don't know, just seeing yellow stuff sitting
I
there.
I just thought of the best thing. So your genetic ability you get is that you're able to see the paranormal. But then the downside of it is every time you like do that with your mouth, you lick your lips or you I don't know what is that called when you're doing that?
I don't know, licking your lips or chewing obnoxiously.
I guess tasting your mouth, I would say.
That works.
Every time you do that, and you have to do it like I mean like multiple times a day, it tastes like mustard.
Ugh. Oh, no, no, no,
No. You wouldn't
no.
see the paranormal for that?
The hell no. No
See,
mustard. Dude.
that's the only closest thing I can think of is that if you're going to get one thing, there has to be a side effect or there has to be something bad that goes with it. If you ask God for superpowers, he's got to take away one of your legs or he's got to do something drastic to match that, because you can't have too much power or you'll be like Dr. Manhattan, then no one can fucking
Yeah.
stop you.
Or Superman. I think he's the most boring character ever, but I know that's a controversial topic, but I would say in this case, I mean, seeing the paranormal, a downside would be not being able to shut it off. So like you wake up, you're taking a crap in the morning, and there's some like pirate dancing around next to you, like staring at you, like I'm not down with that.
Maybe there's like imagine if there was a time restriction on when you could be a ghost. So you have to be dead for at least 500 years and then you get to come back as a ghost.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that would be pretty crazy. I mean, I I always find it interesting. Like, if you were to go to a different like country where they speak a different language, how are the entities going to like talk to you? I don't even know how you'd interact with them, because you'd go to like a common one that everyone wants to go to is the suicide forest in Japan, to do an investigation there. But I'm thinking like, well, you need a translator, because you're not going to know what the fuck anyone's saying. Like, you'll be asking English questions to the spirit, at the spirit box. You would need a translator there for the spirits to be able to, understand what you're saying. And then, to reciprocate, you would also need that same translator. So it's kind of an odd thing to think about. So I would assume a time frame would be the same scenario, because I mean, how they talk back in like the 1100s is going to be different than how we talk now. I'm sure there's different words that they use that we wouldn't understand.
But even mostly ghosts are like, to the ones that speak are rare. Like most of the time, ghosts are just being seen and they can't say words because it probably takes a lot to break through that veil. Your job would be 1,000 times easier if you went to Japan, because the way that they talk about the spirits of their ancestors, it's in the samurai blades that they carry down through their family. So instead of going to a haunted location, you just have to go to a place with a samurai sword and talk to it
Yeah,
and spirit box it.
yeah. I mean, there are haunted um, things. I know some people collect them. I know Tom in our group always tries to collect different haunted items. I'm like, I'm not bringing any of that shit into my house.
Can
There's no
you
way in hell.
can you imagine if you had a guardian spirit that was with you throughout your whole entire life? The one, like we were saying in the beginning, that protects you from all the dangers and stuff. Imagine if it wasn't like you could choose it, or do you think it would be gifted upon you? Like imagine if you got a Spanish guardian angel and you do not speak Spanish. You,
Yeah.
oh my God, this is the word. I don't know how to communicate with the person. Like we talk about guardian angels. Everyone
Mhm.
always says it must be your guardian angel. Maybe it's a spirit of like your
Yeah.
ancestor that wants the lineage to continue.
Yeah, just like a spiritual ally. That's why I'm trying to figure out what this Tony thing is. If it's a spiritual ally, or if he's a prick that's trying to mess with me. I don't know. I've been banned from doing spirit box sessions in our house though, because every time I do that, it seems like the activity kind of intensifies, and sometimes we're woken up at like 2 or 3 in the morning. So it's not a good thing when you have a pregnant wife to be messing around with that at the house.
You got to do a seance or something to be able to like bring that spirit out. You need to get some real like footage, some super clear evidence of like this is like a monster. This is a thing from. I mean, would you want to open up a portal or something to another dimension and just not be able to close it? I think that's probably the biggest fear for a lot of people is like when you're summoning something, something might go wrong or break through the veil or something that you can't
Mhm.
put back, like kind of like some Stranger Things shit.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of how my first paranormal experience was it was during a summer summoning session, because I didn't believe in the shit, and it was at a cemetery, and I think I told you about it before. We definitely summoned something, and it came through, and yeah, it scared the crap out of me. That was probably 15 years ago, and I just tried to shut it off and just act like yeah, it would never happen. And then I was recently talking about it. Like a year or so ago, and that's what kind of got me into investigating. Was all right, well, this happened. Hopefully this is the worst thing that could happen. So I felt a little more comfortable, like, yeah, okay, now I'm talking about it, now I kind of want to go and explore it more.
You need to bring back that mayor from DC that smoked crack. I mean, allegedly smoked crack.
I'm not sure what happened here, Robbie. Your
Can
picture went away.
can you hear me still?
I can still hear you. Can you see me?
I can see you. Your light on your
Okay,
screen went off though. There he goes.
there it is. I don't know what the hell happened there. That was weird.
There was that guy from DC that was reelected after caught smoking crack, and they were like, "Were you smoking crack in that? Like, what was in that pipe?" He goes, "Nobody knows what was in that pipe." I'm like, "You just fucking okay." But he got elected again. Forgot his name.
Yeah,
But yeah, talk to that guy and figure out if he smoked crack. Actually, I would like to
yeah.
speak to spirits because I have questions I want answers to. We have perspectives of things that we don't understand. I just was listening to a podcast with they call him the Podfather, the guy who kind of started it all. Um, Not Joe Rogan.
Hmm.
It's going to be a guy named Adam Curry. He kind of started the beginnings of podcasting, I would say, for a lot of people. But he would just mention that how he was talking to Steve Jobs about, getting the podcast and everything. That's why it's strictly on Apple. Apple's like the best, I would say, gateway or exit when it comes to podcasts, because it's like where all the platforms go through Apple. Because he
Yeah.
had a thing with Steve Jobs, but the issue was initially in the blueprint, it wasn't I guess added into the clause of like, oh, podcasts are just going to be an Apple type of thing. That's why it's mainly on Apple, because they added into the blueprint, hey, it's going to be like kind of like your Apple is going to be the best source for podcasts. We're going to kind of
Mhm.
own this market. And it was like, see, I would have never known that. I was always wondering why it was always on Apple. It's easier to do podcasts on Apple. Why do they have more apps to distribute? Like Anchor, for instance, distributes to like 9 different platforms, and any other one only just does its main one. Like Buzzsprout just does Buzzsprout. They don't go off
Mhm.
to other side things. Castbox does Castbox, but Anchor does, Spotify, anything you can really name of. And I'm like, well, damn, it's because it's owned by the freaking market. I would have never known that perspective. So what perspectives in life are we missing right now?
Oh yeah. I mean, the only hard part when you do the paranormal investigations and try to connect and communicate with entities is it takes so much energy for them to be able to come through a spirit box or to be able to intelligently touch a REM pod to answer your questions. So it's hard because you only get glimpses of it. It would be nice to have some kind of technology, and hopefully, I mean, it's developed at some point where you can actually have a full blown conversation and not just snippets here and there of a conversation. And I think at that point, I mean, you could use paranormal investigation to solve murders because you could talk to the person that was murdered and say, "Hey, who killed you?" And they could come through and say, "It was this asshole." So, I mean, it definitely is a science, an atypical science, I would say, but it's definitely a science that if it gets expanded upon, it could open doors that people don't even think of.
Imagine you're a ghost and you're talking to one of your ancestors and you're trying to tell them where their or predecessors, to where maybe your treasure, where it's buried. And you're
Yeah.
like, it's buried underneath and then a hand just grabs you and pulls you back into the veil. And you're like, what the fuck? And it's a dude in a suit and he goes, you had 20 seconds. I gave you
Yeah,
20
exactly.
seconds. Now you got to wait 100 years before you get another 20 seconds. So you have to wait 100 years sitting on the idea of where your treasure is buried. And then you find out someone to kill off your whole entire bloodline. You should only be able to communicate to your own bloodline. You shouldn't be able to communicate to everybody else. Like, that doesn't make sense that we can see other ghosts that they're not part of our family. Like, you should have a distinct connection. That would make the most sense, because if a spirit is coming back from the dead and it was your family member, you would have like blood or DNA or something that was attached to that person where you would still see them, rather than just seeing a random person like Al Capone or something like that. You're like, I'm not related to you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's possible, but I mean, in a spiritual sense, though, they don't really have DNA anymore. They're just kind of energy. So I think that's why there's no stipulation like you can only communicate to these people, but not these people. Like I think it's just it's just an energy thing for the most part. But going to the family thing, in talks. My great grandfather owned a restaurant from the 1950s until I think he sold it in like 1989. And I'm talking to the current owner, trying to, get set up a time where we can actually go and investigate the location. And I know, my great grandfather, I was probably like maybe 4 or 5 when he passed away. But my great aunt worked there, my great uncle worked there, my grandma worked there. So I want to test the hypothesis when I go there, where do you have to necessarily be dead in order for essence to be around at a location that were frequently at? So my grandma, she's still alive. I mean, she's in a nursing home and everything, but I want to see if it's possible to be able to communicate with her at this restaurant, since she spent so much time there. Maybe part of her essence was imprinted at that location. Just a theory that I'm kind of working on.
I feel bad for any person that's been to a thrift store and bought an old dead guy's pants. Because if that's true, that is some scary shit.
Oh yeah, yeah. You put the pants on and then your legs just go crazy because you can't control it.
Imagine if you would have to like if we were in this time dimension where anything spiritual or paranormal, if a person dies, whatever that is closely they're attached to or connected to, such as their shirt, such as their pants, such as their whatever they died in, wherever they died around, you'd have to burn those objects because if somebody touched those, they immediately became that person. Not like facial wise, but like personality traits. You just picked up like, you put on an
Yeah.
old dead guy's pants. Next thing you know, you're loving sailing. You're loving fucking building sandcastles and shit you
Mhm.
never wanted to do before, but you adopted his traits.
Yeah, yeah, it is possible too. I watched one of the I don't watch a lot of the paranormal shows, but one that I do watch is called The Dead Files. And they what it is they go to a location. There's a psychic, and then there's a guy who does the investigation side of it. He's a former New York police officer. So they work separately, and she goes to a location not knowing anything about it and kind of picks up on what happened, the history of the location or what's going on currently. And then the cop will work during the day. He'll, interview people about the location and find out the history of the location. And then at the end, they go to together and work with the family to kind of say what's going on at the location and what steps you can do to, if it's like a malevolent energy that's oppressing someone, they try to go over steps that you can do to kind of get rid of that. And there was an episode where there was a child at a house, and there was a portal in his closet that the psychic picked up on, and they kept getting shadow creatures coming out of it and all kinds of crazy stuff, and the kid was starting to behave like really badly. And they found out that there was a malevolent spirit there of a guy who was like a bank robber and rapist and just a horrible person. And the psychic said that you need to work with I forget what they're called, but there's people that will have an energy, intentionally have an energy attached to them to get it away from a kid or whatever, and then they are trained in order to get rid of it. So the kid, they asked, well, what happens if we don't do this? And they said the kid would eventually become that person, that rapist, that bank robber, and just become a horrible person and be that person. So it is possible that can happen.
God damn, never a positive story, man. With these maybe ghosts are
A
getting
couple.
misconfused or whatever with imaginary friends. Maybe they're the nice ghosts or the imaginary friends because they want to actually help your kid fucking with math and shit, not try and take over his body.
Yeah, I mean, there's good energies for sure. I mean, I think the majority are good energies. Like we went to the Grand Midway Hotel, and there was a woman named Martha Minnie Serwinski, and in 1911, it was July 4th, 1911. She was watching the fireworks show, and she had a brutal death. One of the fireworks got caught in the steel piping and blew up and nearly decapitated her, and she died at the hotel. But we were interacting with her, and she was like a real playful spirit. Like she was just an 18-year-old girl that's there and wants to interact and is a kind of a warm energy, even though she had a brutal death.
God damn.
Yeah, and I mean, there's other spirits like at Anchorage Mansion. The main spirit was Eliza. I can't remember her name. That was one of my first investigations, but she just she died at the house, and she just never wanted to leave because her husband built her that house, and she died 1 year after the construction was done. So the theory is that she just never wanted to leave because she never had a chance to enjoy her house while she was alive. So she's like a warm spirit. When you interact with her, she's like a real nice, caring spirit.
Yeah, a lot of people like to think that like haunted places, especially where there's like a lot of death, is probably like some crazy like there's a tree with a skeleton hanging off the branches. No, hotels, man. Anybody I've ever talked to that's worked in the hotel businesses, I'm like, how many deaths have you come across working at the hotel? And they're like 4 or 5. I've had 3 in the 3 or 4 years I worked at the hotel. We had no 4 people die. One girl
Yeah,
killed herself, and
is
then
that the pizza one?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that was terrible too.
Hey,
Damn it.
at least you didn't let a good pizza go to waste,
Did you go in that room? Yes. It's like, where's everything that was in the room? Well, I threw it out. It's like, oh shit. Trying to convince a cop girl didn't kill herself. Okay. Yeah, but I mean, dude, I'm telling you, It's strange, man. The fact that, like, even with life, people say life is so precious. It is precious, but at the same time, is one that's filled with misery less than one that's filled with nothing but joy?
Hmm.
We constitute it as a life of happiness and everything you could ever want is better than a life of misery and pain. But depending on who you are, you might like that type of thing. You know, you might enjoy a life of hardships and a life of struggling and a life of that because it helps you push forward maybe more to succeed. You know, the idea that, like, I know my cousin said it best. When I had a couple friends, during like the past year, hurt, like, end themselves. He was like, "Is that person weak?" And everything I've learned was like, "That's weak if you do that." But then he really
Hmm.
started looking down to the concept of it and goes, maybe they're actually strong because they couldn't handle the pain anymore. And that's such a drastic act, to be able to
Yeah.
do something like that to yourself. And it made me think of it in a whole different way. Death is something that is we barely understand as much as we barely understand about life, and it's crazy to say that there's no such thing as ghosts or paranormal because then you're completely dismissing the fact that there's a lot that we don't understand. There's holes that need to be filled, and we're just taking shots in the dark every time we do try and make a choice or assumption.
Well, I think as far as believing things or throwing things out, you and I kind of have a similar take on things where okay, you had that one guy come in and really talk about Christianity and stuff to that extent. There's no way that you can disprove that. So I don't know if that's right. I don't know if it's wrong. I can't say that your beliefs are horseshit because I don't know. And that's the same with anything. It's like if you don't know, you can't completely dismiss it. Um, just like with the birds not being real guy that that whole topic. I mean, I had owned a bird. I've owned several birds, so I kind of think that they're real. But I mean, I can't say that they're not just some kind of thing that's like a camera for an alien or whatever his theory was. I mean, I like to say that I can believe in anything and I'm open minded to anything. And I think once you open your mind to things, that's when you notice things that you haven't noticed before. Like with the whole paranormal thing, I kind of closed that off when we did the summoning thing in the cemetery years ago. But it started reopening whenever we moved into this house because I started noticing activity, and then I started noticing it more and more, and then I became a member of this team and started going to these locations, and now I feel like I can go to any location and at least pick up on the energy. And it's kind of weird once you open your mind to things. It's like you slowly remove that veil that's shrouding over your face and covering your eyes. And I think it's definitely something just to keep an open mind. You can be skeptical, have a skeptical brain, but keep that open mind.
I like that. Open mind. Open up your mind to new things. To play an Eagles CD if you really feel a need to. I
You
wouldn't,
feel
but
the need?
still.
I wouldn't either, but if you want to rock some Hotel California, that's your prerogative.
One song that they have that's actually okay, and even then it
I
gets
know.
annoying after the second play. Um,
Yep.
Mikey, where can people find the paranormal team, the page, the documentaries where they can see your wonderful writings?
Well, we're bumping the Night Society. We're on Facebook, Instagram. I know I always rip on it. We're on TikTok. I think we got a Twitter going now. WordPress. We just released. It's been about a month now. We released our first documentary evidence release. It's called Discombobulated in the Dark. It's about our time at Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. We're working on the Bel Air Demon House. We're analyzing the evidence from there. We're going to release a documentary, I'm hoping, in May or June. Then we're going to work on Hillview Manor and just keep trying to release as many documentaries as possible. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much our presence. If you want to TikTok it up, we're on there.
And that has been the wise words of what's your Mr. Rogers name again? I was trying to say it.
Mr. Bowser's Neighborhood.
Mr. Bowser's Neighborhood. Stay tuned for another
Yeah.
episode.